Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be deep diving into a scenario on the 2026 governors and Senate midterms on if Donald Trump were to send, poll watchers, his own monitors in the midterms, aka the National Guard, or whoever that may be, or even basically what Democrats are arguing, the voter ID argument. What if that gets passed? Which it most likely won't, but if it does, how that would look like on the midterms, how will it play effect with the map. We're going to be finding that out in this video. Before we get started, make sure you guys are subscribed, click the bell so you don't miss all my content, press the like button, share this video. Don't forget we have memberships. If you're interested, you can find links to that in the description section. So Donald Trump has threatened every once in a while that he is going to send election monitors to monitor any suspicious, quote unquote, suspicious activity when it comes to counting the ballots, specifically the 2026 midterms. He keeps floating the idea in the air. It's not anything official just yet. It's just what he's been floating for a while now. This video was requested by someone in the comment section, so shout out to that. Now, if this were to happen, if he were to, that could change the result basically by people getting forced to leave. They, denied being, able to vote, denied access to vote potentially, because someone kicks them out, the National Guard perhaps, because for some reason they don't have an ID or whatever that the case may be, which Democrats would argue is just completely not true. So let's just say Trump does happen to send his own poll monitors, watchers, or maybe if the Save America Act does get passed, would that lead to voter suppression? Let's see with the map. Let's start off with the Senate and then we'll end off with the governor's race. So Alaska, it's Dan Sullivan, the longtime Republican incumbent, going up against Mary Peltola. Now let's just say Trump does send poll watchers to a few states. It may not be every state. Let's just say Alaska is not affected by this. Dan Sullivan's still gonna win. Mary Peltola probably has a better shot at the governor's race than the Senate, so I would still characterize as a likely Republican state. Keep in mind, she also lost her House race last time in 2024 by about 4 percentage points or so. So that's that. And then to Texas, you have James Tallarico going up against the likely Republican nominee candidate, John Cornyn, actually. So if that's the case, he is the better candidate than Ken Paxton on the Republican side, but still not the best candidate. James Tallarico can do good. But if there were to be poll watchers, Trump would probably prioritize them in Texas and states like California for the governor's race. I know they don't have a Senate race, but especially the governor's race. I think Trump would aim to put them in states like Georgia, especially Texas and California, basically the Sun Belt, and any other toss-up state, Michigan maybe. So if that's the case, Texas I think could be lean to likely R in this case scenario. I'm going to leave it likely for now for this scenario specifically, just because it was solid Republican in the 2024 Senate race. I believe Ted Cruz won by a substantial amount. And then in Georgia, it's hard for me to say the Republicans will win this Senate race. You have John Ossoff, who's dumping a lot of money. So despite there being some would call voter suppression, still not going to be enough. I can see John Ossoff still pulling out the victory, but by a very narrow margin, even if Democratic voters were to be turned down by whether it's the voter ID law, or the new bill that could get passed or may not get passed, the Save America Act, and then also the National Guard monitoring the polls. So I still see Democrats hanging on to that race. And then in North Carolina, you have Roy Cooper. Yeah, he's still going to win. He's going up against Michael Whatley. Not the worst candidate, also not the best. It's what Republicans have in North Carolina. He's still going to win that. In Ohio, I can say this is, lean R for John Husted going up against Sherrod Brown, who lost in 2024. It's not going to be a, red wave year as it was in 2024, so the margin could definitely be closer. But if Trump sends poll watchers in some of these states, if it does change the vote, just saying if it does, it's a scenario. That's what this video is all about. Then Ohio could be lean Republican. And then Michigan, I could also see Mike Rogers win this if somehow Democratic voters get turned down because for some reason they get turned down and they can't vote from the poll monitors that Trump sends for whatever reason that may be. Mike Rogers can pull off this victory because he almost came within, he came within under a percentage point against Alyssa Slotkin in 2024. Now, Trump was on the ballot. It was a more favorable year for Republicans. It's a total opposite in 2026. It's a favorable year for Democrats. Trump is not on the ballot, so that's why Mike Rogers loses in a regular scenario. Now, for this scenario specifically, which Trump does send his election monitors, which he has been floating around, whether it's the National Guard or the Save America Act, which somehow suppresses voters, then Michigan could very well be a tilt Republican state. I think that's actually the case for the governor's race, by the way, which we'll get to shortly in a bit. And then you have Nebraska. Dan Osborne, he's good. He's a good independent candidate. He can win a lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrats, both sides of the aisle. And considering that both parties are very unfavorable, both parties at an all-time low in terms of approval rating, Dan Osborne could take a big chunk of the Republican base, a big chunk of the Democratic base, which is why he could do so well. Now, with the election monitors that Trump could send, on top of the Save America Act, that Democrats are arguing suppresses voters. If that hypothetical scenario plays out, then Nebraska could be very well a likely Republican state for the Senate. Pete Ricketts is a very strong incumbent Republican. He's very popular. So this is the map based on if Trump sends election monitors combined with the factor of the Save America Act getting passed, and some voters do end up getting turned down if the Democrats are correct. And then you have on their argument, and then you have the governor's races. Joe Lombardo in the 60s in terms of approval rating, 2/3. He's very popular in the state of Nevada. Nevada is known to love Republican governors, not so much in the Senate. I think Lombardo can win by a likely amount by like 5 percentage points, especially if Trump does send poll monitors in these states. Now, we're not sure if he does do that. I wouldn't say this is hypothetical. He very well can. I'm not even sure if that's constitutional or not. Actually, I don't think that is constitutional, so that can go up to the Supreme Court possibly. And if the Save America Act, assuming it gets passed, and Democrats' argument is correct, where voters actually do get suppressed, then he's a very popular governor. He's going to win anyways. I can see Lombardo, at 5% of his victory, in terms of the margin. Katie Hobbs, she could get unseated. Trump won. He managed to win Arizona, by 5 points in 2024. Katie Hobbs almost lost to a very flawed candidate, Carrie Lake. So if Republicans nominate someone just a tad bit better, like Robinson or Andy Biggs, then I can see them having a Republican governor. And if that's the case, Republicans will win Arizona's governor's race, especially if those two factors are combined to be true. Trump sends poll monitors, people get turned off to vote, Democrats get lower turnout than they were supposed to, and the voter ID, Save America Act gets passed. And the Democrats are correct in their argument that will, if this scenario does play out, and if that does turn off voters, then yes, I can see Arizona, unseating Katie Hobbs. And she ran a shadow campaign, still won, but against a very terrible candidate. Like I mentioned, it was by under percentage point against Carrie Lake, out of all people. Come on. If they get someone just a little bit better, the Republicans nominate Robinson or Biggs. I know this is a more favorable year for Democrats, but in this scenario, for the sake of this video, Katie Hobbs will lose. Now, in Georgia, it's hard to see Democrats winning this governorship, so I'm going to say lean R. Ohio, you have Vivek Ramaswamy against Amy Acton. Now, polls always, in Ohio specifically, especially, tend to say, Democrats are doing very well early on. That was the case with Sherrod Brown. He collapsed as we got closer to the 2024 election. I expect the same thing to happen. I think Vivek could do well. I think he could win by up to 7 percentage points, perhaps, a likely margin instead of lean, mainly because he overperformed in the 2024 Republican primaries. He managed to get 8%. I believe all the way through the Iowa caucus, correct me if I'm wrong. I think third place or something like that. For his first time. He never held public office before. He was never a politician. He ran for the very first time. People didn't even know who his name was. They didn't know who he was. And he still managed to get 8% on a primary that Donald Trump was in. Imagine if Trump wasn't in that primary. Vivek could have had more He could have competed for more, and he could have brought some more competition. So if that's the case, I think polls are underestimating Vivek right now. And if the poll monitors that Trump sends, if he does, really impacts things, yeah, Ohio's a very likely Republican state. And then Wisconsin, you have Michigan, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire. And in New Hampshire, you have Kelly Ayotte. She won by about, I believe, 4 points in the last election. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I think she's only going to increase on her margin, especially if this scenario does play out. She's popular. She's not really MAGA. She can win over Democratic support, independents, and yeah, the Democratic Party is at all-time low in terms of their approval rating. I think she can win New Hampshire. And then Wisconsin, you have, I believe, Mandela Barnes going up against the Republican. He lost last time when he ran for Senate, I believe, against Johnson. So I know this is completely different. This is the governor's race, and the president's popularity doesn't really impact governor races as much as it does for the Senate. I think that's more of a Senate thing. So I think that doesn't really affect the Republican candidate. And Wisconsin hasn't. They're just coming off of Tony Evers, who's a Democrat. Maybe they want a change in leadership. And Mandela Barnes has been a losing candidate before. He hasn't proven to win. I mean, he's been proven to be competitive at least. But let's just say this is still R. And then Michigan, also, I would say this is lean R. They're also coming off of a Democrat previous governor, Gretchen Whitmer. And she's coming off of her, she's been the governor for a very long time. And if that's the case, then Michigan could also very well. Actually, Michigan has a higher chance of voting for Republican Governor John James than Wisconsin does. And this is a three-way race, by the way. Three-way race. And it's hurting the Democratic candidate, which is why John James' chance go up. So even if Trump doesn't send these poll monitors, and even if the Save America Act doesn't get passed, John James still could win without this scenario. This only enhances his margin. So I think there's a real good chance John James does win. He's the Republicans' best hope in the state of Michigan. And in Pennsylvania, you have Josh Shapiro, very popular. I think Pennsylvanians love the job that he's doing. Let me know if I'm wrong. If you are Pennsylvanian, do you like what Josh Shapiro has done? I think they do. He won by 14 last time against Doug Mastriano. He has no competition, really. So I see this likely R. It's not going to be as much as he won by last time due to a rise in anti-Semitism. Literally just that. That will affect the margin. So instead of 14, maybe he wins by 7. But with these poll watchers and with the anti-Semitism going around, maybe that margin goes down to 5. I can see it being lean. So going from 14 points to 5 points in a matter of just a few years is kind of insane, to be honest. But I think the anti-Semitism is really big in this country. So 20 to 30, and as for the Senate, 52 to 48. Democrats don't really do too much better. So if this scenario does play out and the Democrats' argument is right that this does, the outcome is election integrity. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you think the SAVE Act will get passed? Do you think it will, affect the outcome? Do you think Trump will indeed send poll monitors? Why or why not? Do you think both of those things will happen, or just one of them, or neither? Me personally, I honestly think neither will happen. I think there's more of a chance the SAVE Act gets passed rather than Trump sending, monitors. We've seen him do some unconstitutional things before. This might be another one. We'll see. We'll find out. But one last final reminder to subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss my content. Press the like button, share this video. Don't forget we have memberships if you're interested. You can find links to that in the description section. Thank you everyone for watching.